Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and I'm back again with fiber artist Amy Mundinger. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Mary Kate.
And in our last episode, you talked about how to make our own wool felt,
Yes.
which is sort of your passion these days, is working with wool felt. And today you're going to show us how to use our beautiful new wool felt in our quilting projects.
Yes.
Excellent. Let's take a look at these adorable, adorable samples that we've got here on the table in front of us.
So here you can see where I have appliqued my handmade wool felt, which has a lot of texture. It's really jumping up off the quilt. You can see the machine quilting behind it, but you can also see some hand embroidery stitches
Yeah, they're really
laid right on top of the quilt.
There's a lot of embellishment going on here. And you're right about the texture that's a lot thicker. In our previous episode, you showed some commercially made wool felt, and it's a lot thinner. And the nice thing about making your own wool felt is that you get to kind of control the texture and how much that relief that it comes up off the surface. And
Gives you a lot of choices.
it really does.
Yeah.
These are beautiful. Anything else you want to point out about these?
Let's talk about how we would construct this quilt.
Okay, great.
So what I have here is a quilt square that has been pieced, machine quilted, and then you can see it already has the binding on it. You could multiply this and imagine that it was a whole quilt, or you could use this as a wall hanging. It would look super cute in a bedroom or a hallway or a bathroom.
And what I'm thinking is that if you are new to free motion quilting, it's a good way to practice and still use it, but you get to cover up a lot of it. And you get to make the quilting not the focus. So here's your practice piece, and you still get to put it to use by by layering it with this gorgeous applique. That would be me at least.
Here are some pieces that go into making the fox quilt running around the blueberry patch.
Foxes are sort of your thing these days, aren't
Foxes
they?
are kind of my things. I'm just going to kind of separate out these pieces so that you can see how the fox is made up of 3 elements.
And this is your design, correct?
This is my design. I see foxes hopping outside my window, and so I'm really drawn to them at the moment. They're really, really fun.
But if somebody wasn't confident in drafting their own applique shapes, there are a ton of options out there.
Yeah.
So
all you have to do is start searching.
Yeah, but maybe something that's not really intricate, correct?
You absolutely want shapes that are more round forms, simple forms. Circles are a great place to start. So I can show you on this center medallion. This is just made up of small circles, 4 leaf shapes that are brought together and embroidered onto the medallion. So that's really great. You can do a lot with circles. And I love that as a quilter because I'm always drawn to circles, and yet it's a more complicated, more intermediate skill to actually quilt circles or to piece circles into quilts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So this is a fun way to bring circles in.
And we should also mention again that with the wool felt, it's all raw edge.
Yeah.
Nothing turned edge about this, and it's not fusible. You don't need to fuse it down. You can just stitch it. It's going to stay in place. It's going to hold its shape.
Absolutely.
All that good stuff.
Not having to do needle turn applique is another reason to venture out and try this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just laying these elements to sort of show you how they go around. And I have my foxes all running in the same direction, so their heads are all going in the same way. And I'm just going to lay these out because I want to see if I have my proportions right, if I like this design, and make some adjustments now before I go on to the next step, which would be to start to secure the pattern pieces onto the quilt itself. And what I would use for that are one of 2 things. This is a wool thread, and this is our cotton quilting thread.
What weight is that, or is it a quilting weight thread?
This is a 60.
Oh, okay. So it's
I would
pretty
use either
thin.
a 50 or a 60.
Okay.
I like the 60 because it's actually going to melt more into the felt, and so it's going to become more invisible.
And these are the stitches that we're using to secure
our foxes.
Okay.
The center medallion is actually going to have some decorative stitches around it.
Got it.
But the foxes, I want to have more of a natural look. You can see here.
Let's see.
So I'm just going to take away some of these foxes now, and we're going to think about where would we begin. I would begin with a cotton thread and securing down my first fox body, and go around and do all 4 of the fox bodies, and then adding the head and the tail as the second step.
Is there any basting or pinning required, or does it hold its shape well enough at this size that you can just stitch?
Depends on the felt that you're using,
Okay.
but it does hold its shape, and I might put a few straight pins in,
Okay.
just depending on the size and shape and how I was feeling that day.
Okay. And you're stitching through all 3 layers here, or all layers, more than 3 layers?
Well, actually,
Mind if I turn this one over?
go ahead.
Great.
You have an opportunity here to
Oh, you don't
do
really
either
see.
fine work
Yeah.
or work that shows. And because if it's a wall hanging, it really won't matter.
No.
The stitches will be to the back. And so I think you have the freedom to do whatever you'd like.
Okay.
When you're actually using the cotton thread and securing it, it's very easy to just pick up that first layer of the quilt top and hide those stitches.
Yeah, there are only a few of these.
French knots are a little more challenging.
Sure.
And I think you should just work at whatever level that you're comfortable at.
Okay.
It'll all get hidden. So we have some options in terms of how we want to embellish. Once we have laid down all of our pieces and secured them, we have some options in terms of embellishing. We can use some embroidery floss, which is a cotton. We can use pearl cotton, which has a beautiful sheen. Or
And really quick, what size do you like to use?
this is size 5.
5, okay.
It's a little bit chunkier. I like that. It's my preference, but you could use a 3.
Oh,
That's
even
a little
bigger.
bit finer or a little bit bigger.
Yeah, would you go as small as an 8 or a 12?
It's a totally up to you.
Okay.
I like my stitches to show.
Right, if you're going to do them, you might as well announce them to the world. So,
Or you could use a crewel yarn, which has the benefit of being 100% wool, which complements the wool applique. But cotton complements the cotton quilt.
Right.
So it's really a personal choice.
well, it all works beautifully. None
Yeah.
of it doesn't work. Let's put it that
Right,
way.
you have so many choices and so many options for each person to decide. So there are basically 3 stitches that you need to learn in order to start embellishing, but there are thousands of stitches
Yeah.
available in terms
Yeah.
of embroidery for you to learn and explore. The 3 basic stitches that I use in many different ways are first the blanket stitch, and then the straight stitch, which you can see in a couple of different places, and the French knot, which are the eyes and the blueberries, as well as the embellishment on the leaves.
Yes.
So with those 3 stitches, you can go to town and start embellishing not only on the applique pieces, but as you can see, on the quilt itself.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about design options.
Awesome. So I really want you to think of your quilt as a blank canvas. It's a design opportunity, and if you have a large quilt, you have a bigger design opportunity.
Right.
And so we can take some felt pieces that we've cut out already. So I have some foxes and a medallion, and I can just start arranging them on this quilt and see what I'm happy with. So I'm just going to lay these on here, and maybe I want to change the direction that the foxes are hopping, and maybe I want to bring in some other shapes. And you can see how I'm just changing the design possibilities until I find something that I'm satisfied with. And this is really where the freedom and creativity comes in to start embellishing your quilts and using the wool felt cutouts to design whatever you have in mind.
Yeah, and if you've done some felting on your own, you've got a lot of material sitting around, so you can go and cut shapes as you're working and bring something in that you didn't think of initially. Use this as your actual design wall.
Exactly.
So, excellent.
Okay, so let's look at another project.
Yes. Here it is.
So here we have a finished project, and let's think about this center medallion and what kind of shapes would we actually need? We would need about a 6-inch square, background shape.
Circle.
A circle.
That's okay.
A flower, and some smaller circles. And to cut these shapes out, I would take my handmade wool felt, and what I've brought with me is a jam jar lid. It's just something I have around the house. I like to look at plates and cups and lids and whatever I have handy.
Proud tradition of using household goods as templates. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to lay that on my wool felt. And for marking tools, we have all the same tools that we traditionally have for quilting. We could use a Sharpie pen or a chalk pencil or disappearing ink, but my favorite marking tool is actually a sliver of wool soap, and this is borrowed from seamstresses who are making garments. But there's something about this and on the texture of this felted wool that really works for me. So I'll just show you how this.
Yeah, I've heard about soap as a marking tool. I've never had occasion to use it yet. So
and you know, it's wonderful because you're not wasting anything. You get down to that really fine sliver of soap, but you know that you are going to save it and use it again. And there you have it.
Yep.
Your shape is marked on the felt. Reach for my scissors, and you'll see just how beautifully this felt cuts.
Yeah.
I'm just going to roughly cut my shape first, move my felt away, and you can see I have my marking there. I'm cutting right on the inside of my soap marking. It's like butter. And I think, as you've pointed out before, Mary Kate, no needle turning required.
That's just a nice
So we have just a beautiful circle. And the next step would be to layer up our pieces. We have our flower, which, by the way, I drafted using graph paper, but shapes are widely available.
Right, right.
You can do some embroidery stitches. You can see here, I've done some blanket stitches onto the base. We can layer up our other pieces.
So you would embroider each layer down first.
Each layer down
and
first.
Add the next.
Add the next. And the beautiful thing about a medallion is that all of your work is hidden behind, and you're going to sandwich that right onto the quilt.
Yeah.
So once we have our medallion finished, we can take our cotton thread and place it and securely, invisibly stitch it to our quilt.
And again, that's where that 60 weight cotton thread comes into play, because you've already got your beautiful decorative stitches that you want to show.
Yes.
And then you can just use that matching 60 weight thread to secure it where it needs to be, and you're good to go.
Yeah. So I love working with felt. It is a natural product. Handmade felt is something that I've recycled. And of course, my first love, quilting, bringing it all together, it just seems like a natural progression.
Yeah.
And there's so much creativity involved. I hope that this inspires other projects.
I think so, because it has it appeals to a lot of different aesthetics. So if you're really into primitive quilting, this is an obvious choice, but it can be used for a lot of other looks as well, more folksy to reproduction. It really covers a wide range of quilt types just with this one basic material and a couple of basic techniques. Thank you so much for coming today and showing these to us, your beautiful projects.
Thank you for having me.
We really, really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot.
Thanks, Mary Kate.
We hope you learned a lot too, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.